Alright, in terms of rune pages, we are going to be running Domination. There are currently 2 keystone options for Vex, and that's going to be Electrocute and Dark Harvest. The only reason why Dark Harvest is included in this video is because a lot of low elo players like Dark Harvest. Now, Dark Harvest has some applicable uses, but 99% of the time, Dark Harvest is useless. So the reason why I'm including this is to tell you that Dark Harvest is not good. Now, the really cool thing about Vex is that you have Shadow Surge, which allows you to reset your ultimate multiple times, re-engage fights, and while yes, I agree that Dark Harvest is really good at maximizing damage in that situation, League of Legends isn't just about team fighting, it's also about the laning phase, and Electrocute is consistent because you're always able to apply it in the laning phase, whereas Dark Harvest is way too conditional. That is why my personal preference is Electrocute. Now, next up, you have the option between Cheap Shot and Sudden Impact. 99% of the time, you're going to take Cheap Shot because, again, it is more consistent to use, as it's very easy to apply with Looming Darkness and the multiple fears in your kit. Now, Sudden Impact does give you a burst of lethality, but that is only available on Shadow Surge, which again is a conditional thing. So if you're playing Shadow Surge max with like Dark Harvest, Sudden Impact, that is a meme build, but I think that would be pretty fun to do. But if you're trying to win, then you should be running Cheap Shot. Next up, this one is a little bit of personal preference. There is a lot of value in taking things like Ghost Poro, but because Vex is a skirmishing champion that excels in the early to mid game, Eyeball Collection is the fastest way to hit your power spike, and I think that is uncontestable. Now, this is a little bit dependent, but 99% of the time you are going to be taking Ultimate Hunter because Ultimate is your main form of combat. You have Insane Wave Clear with Looming Darkness and Mistral Bolts, you just need the ability to ult more often, which is what Ultimate Hunter gives you. If you are not playing Ultimate Hunter, the only other keystone that you should probably be taking is Ingenious Hunter so that you can play around Everfrost Zonias if you're in a losing matchup. But this is your ideal main page. When it comes to secondary runes, you have a few options actually, but my personal preference is going to be Biscuit Delivery and Time Warp Tonic, and the most common reason as to why you'd run Biscuit Delivery and Time Warp Tonic is if you're playing for Corrupting Potion as your first item. If you are not going Corrupting Potion as your first item, there is no reason to go Biscuit Delivery and Time Warp Tonic. The reason why you go Corrupting Potion is because it gives you basically infinite wave clear and infinite sustain because of your resource management. You can't ever run out of mana, you can't ever lose trades, and once again, we're taking Electrocute because we're a heavy trading champion. But if you feel extremely confident and you feel like there's absolutely nothing at all that can punish you, drop Inspiration as your secondary page, you're going to go Transcendence. And the reason why we go Transcendence here is because you get the additional cooldown on basic abilities with Shadow Surge, as well as a little bit of ability haste and Gathering Storm. If you're a gamer and you don't really care and you feel like you're going to one-shot, I think it's okay to swap out Transcendence for Absolute Focus and just go Glass Cannon one-shot. In terms of shards, I think it is always really good to take Attack Speed. This is because it allows you to proc Gloom. Most people don't know this about Vex, but when you apply and consume Gloom, it lowers the cooldown on your fear and makes it available more often. Therefore, being able to auto more often equals more CD. And you're going to take whatever defensive rune is for your matchup, armor into AD champions, magic resistant to magic champions. Hello, and welcome to the itemization portion of this video. Now, Corrupting Potion is a really insane item because it offers nearly infinite trading and wave clear, which is why it's so great. I really recommend taking this item if you're running Inspiration as your secondary rune page. That is Time Warp Tonic and Biscuit Delivery. Now, you can still go Corrupting Potion even with Sorcery secondary. At the end of the day, like if you don't need the additional sustain from those runes, it is totally fine to take Sorcery as your secondary and still go C-Pot. If you are going Sorcery secondary, then I would recommend going Doran's Ring just for a little bit extra damage in the lane phase. Now, once again, if you only have access to 2 health potions, you're not going to have as much sustain for trading, so it is dependent on the matchup and how free it is. Now, in terms of first recalls, it's really ideal to get your Lost Chapter as soon as possible. And this is once again because it's going to solve any mana problems that you have and allow you to infinitely push wave and look for roam timers. If you're unable to find Lost Chapter and First Recall, which can be difficult, I really recommend buying a combination of Dark Seal, Amp Tome, or Boots, depending on the matchup. If you're in a matchup where there's a lot of skill shots or there's a lot of necessity for being able to move around, then boots is a great way of creating or controlling the distance. If you're not in need of boots and you feel like you're always going to have control over lane, then Amp Tome Dark Seal combination. The reason why Dark Seal should always be in your build, especially as a champion like Vex, which is skirmish reliant, is because that this item has a 437% gold efficiency at like max stacks. It's literally nutty. Like, this is going to give you 55 ability power for 350 gold. A blasting wand is 850 gold and it gives you 40, but it also gives you health. Like, this item is undeniably broken, so if you are ever snowballing, you have to have a Dark Seal, because it just makes every game like 10 times easier to win. In terms of boots, this is non-contestable. I know that there are people who build plated steel caps or merc treads depending on the matchup. Your entire champion identity is built around the fact that you have to one-shot people. And their sad reality is, your base damages are really awful on Vex. Like, you need to have sorcerer boots because of the magic penetration. I can understand skipping Ludens because 6 magic pen isn't like great in the grand scheme of things. 18 is insane. But if you do not go sorcerer shoes, your damage output is literally going to be gutted and you're going to be useless. Now, I know that there are people who build Null Mantle or Verdant Spear into you, but you just have to have sorcerer shoes to kill anybody on the map. Now, this is a very situational thing before your mythic. If you are struggling to survive in laning phase and you feel like you're going to lose if you do not build Seeker's Arm Guard or Verdant Barrier, build them. If you're playing versus a Zed, you have to go Seeker's Arm Guard into Everfrost or you're going to lose. Now, there are only 3 or 4 losing matchups on Vex because she's currently overtuned and broken. And at the time of the posting this video, it's very likely that they're not going to nerf her anyways. And Verdant Barrier, I recommend this into matchups like LeBlanc, where you win early because you just have an insane Doom and Gloom proc. But at the end of the day, like, if you get double chained, it doesn't matter. If you can one-shot her, if she one-shots you first, building Null Mantle or even finishing Verdant Barrier is a great way at minimizing that threat. Now, in terms of mythics, 98% of the time you're going to go Luden's Tempest. This is because it gives you front-loaded damage, it gives you access to the Mythic passive, which is also additional magic penetration. When you have Luden's Tempest and Sorcerer Shoes, that's going to put you at 24 magic pen. Most carries that do not have magic resistant in a rune page will have 30, which means you're doing nearly 100% tooltip damage. And the way the magic penetration formula works is you can't go below 0, so you don't really want to overstat on it either. But once you build your first mythic item, that's going to put you up to 29. Everfrost, this is a really great item. It's purely because it has health and the item, and it also gives you the ability to stun in front of you. And it's got a very low cooldown, and this is great versus melee matchups where you might be struggling. Now, the thing is, Vex already wins 99% of matchups because of the fact that she has personal space, which is her W, and fear activators. But there are champions that exist that should not exist, and that is purely Zed. If you're playing into a Zed or any other thing that snowballs out of control because your team gives them 9 shutdowns and 400 roam kills, I'm sorry, you're going Everfrost. This is a very rare occasion. This is like 1% of my games. If they have 3 to 4 tanks and you're not going to be able to kill them no matter what you do, it's better to go Leandri's because the DPS is just more valuable than the 6 magic pin from Ludens. It doesn't matter if the damage is front loaded, you're going to get more DPS out of the Torment proc, as well as the additional bonus damage based on health. Leandri's is actually just better in most ways for the most part. It's just on Vex specifically, Ludens seems to find more value. Now, in terms of situational items, this is basically what you'll be building second in each and every League of Legends game that you play. Once again, if you're into a nightmare AP matchup, like let's say LeBlanc or a Fed Ahri, you're going to need Banshee's Veil. If you're playing into an insane champion that can mitigate your entire existence and one-shot you, for example, let's say Kiana, let's say Zed, let's say Fizz, unfortunately, you're going to need a Zhonya's Hourglass. It doesn't matter if you build Null Mantle into a Fizz. His base damage is so high that you will literally die anyways. If you're playing into a champion that has an insane amount of sustain, and I've actually played this matchup multiple times, but it is Tryndamere, Nasus, Silas, Oblivion Orb does fantastic into those champions and should be like a secondary item. You don't need it early at all. if your team is winning hard and you have a bunch of squishies in the enemy team, the best item that you could pretty much build is going to be Horizon Focus. Most people wonder why Horizon Focus over Rabadon's Death Cap, and the main reason why is just because Horizon Focus is cheaper, which gives you a faster power spike, but it also gives you just additional damage and a lot of raw ability power, which you normally don't get on Vex. Rabadon's in most situations is better on champions like Ziggs, Veigar. Don't want Horizon Focus on those because you just win by playing the game long, but I think that Vex is a champion where you want to end the game by 20 to 25 minutes, where Horizon Focus will excel. Now, if you're playing versus an enemy team that has a lot of magic resist, champions that naturally build MR, a good example of this is something like an Aurelia who builds first item Merc Treads, Silas builds first item Merc Treads, champions that have access to Wit's End like Ashe, Akshan, Kindred, any other champion in the game that is Nightmare Fuel to deal with, you're going to want to build a Void Staff. There's also Galio Predator with Merc Treads. This item is going to give you pretty much all the damage that you need to kill those champions instantly. And finally, if you ever get to 10 Dark Seal stacks, and you would like to absolutely cheese the enemy team, then I highly recommend building Mejai's Soul Stealer. After you've purchased the Dark Seal, it's only going to cost you $12.50, which is equivalent to the Blighting Jewel from Void Staff. And the reason why this is important is because Mejai's gives you 5 magic penetration if you're going Ludens. So not only are you getting 29 magic pen, but you're also just getting an insane amount of ability power, which ups your raw damage, which is the only like actual issue that Vex has, which is raw ability power. She just needs the damage. And this solves that wonderfully while also giving you additional move speed that makes it easier to roam around the map. In terms of final build, it's any combination of items that you need depending on the situation, and then finally a Rabadon's Death Cap. This is your most basic combo in laning phase. I'm going to show you just an example in game as well as on a training dummy. They're going to lead with auto and then E-auto, and it'll proc Electrocute along with the Doom and Gloom, which is an additional pretty much 20 damage at level 1. Once you have access to level 2, you're going to want to just look for Looming Darkness with Fear. Once you find the Fear, that's going to basically guarantee that your Mistral Bolt lands, which will also apply the Doom and Gloom effect. A more advanced version of that combo is doing the exact same thing, lead auto, E auto, and then disengage like that. If you're playing into melee champions like Yone or Yasuo, you essentially just want to use your body as a pressure tool, and you'll just look for constant autos. And if they ever try to engage on you, you're going to lead with W, and then you're going to... So it's basically an auto, W, auto, and then EQ, disengage. And that's basically it. If you're ever playing laning phase and you need access to a quick fear, what you're going to do is basically walk up to Raptors, and you need to understand that Looming Darkness applies Gloom, and when you consume it with Mistral Bolt, it has a passive effect of reducing this ability's cooldown by 25%. So I'm going to go and E the Raptors, and then Q, and it's going to give me instantaneous fear, and now I can just immediately look for a combo. So once again, run back, consume Gloom, I've got fear up again, and you can just continuously do this as much as you want. The only thing that's inhibiting you is the fact that your Looming Darkness is a 13-second cooldown. When playing Vex, the easiest way to find solo kills is really just take advantage of Fog of War, and this is because all your animations are going to be hidden. It's going to be very difficult for people to play around it. So at this point, imagine that this dummy is playing for the minion wave. They don't know that you're behind the wall. You just go ahead and land your R, and then you follow up with your full combo. This is really important here. So this is basically where you take advantage of Fog of War. He has no idea where I am right now. I'm just waiting on my fear, and then it's just absolutely free. So for the most part, this matchup is pretty Vex favored early on. It's only in the mid to late game does LeBlanc get really annoying with her assassination potential, but the main reason why we win is because Doom and Gloom applies to her Distort, and we also have access to personal space. And we're basically down damage here because not only did we fail to land our Looming Darkness, since we tried to hit too many things at once, we also did not get Electrocute proc off, which means that she's currently ahead in trades. We're the first one to use a corrupting potion, but we also hit level 2 here, which means that we do have a slight advantage when it comes to damage. Now, here's the mistake I make right now is I have 2 things on cooldown. There's no reason why I should ever be moving forward right now into a LeBlanc, which gives her access to a free distortion and a free chain combo. So if you miss your skills or you have things on cooldown, there's really no reason why to put yourself in harm's way. And I do the exact same thing to her right there. So I pop her clone for free because she's not respecting the fact that I have cooldown advantage at that given moment. And right now we're just trying to find max range Looming Darkness or Mistral combos. Now we have access to personal space, which makes it very, very difficult for her to distort in. We get a free fear here, and she's just going to go and die here off of that combo. So playing around the proper things in a matchup can make them extremely easy or extremely hard. The number one thing that we have to play against versus LeBlanc is her distort. That's why we held the fear on personal space, and she overcommitted into that fear, causing her to just almost instantly lose. Now, we're 21 CS to 8 CS. We currently have a reset timer. Unfortunately, that means that I'm not going to be able there for top crab, but he is going to go towards black crab anyways. LeBlanc gets back to lane. And at this point, I have access to a lot of combat stat advantages. This is because I have double amp, and she's currently on, I believe, boots. So as long as we're trading 1 for 1, like, I will always come out ahead because of this combat stat advantage I have. That's an extra 40 ability power. And that's something that she has to respect. So if she doesn't respect the combat stat advantage that I have, it's overwhelmingly in my favor because I also have flash advantage. So once we get back to lane, we have 2 options here, which is we can either apply pressure so that we can play around our Xin Zhao, or we can just hold the wave as long as possible. I'm going to go and apply the fear here, and a little bit of an overcommit here, but like my base damage is that much higher because of the double amp. So even though we missed half of our combo, we come out on top on that trade. So had she distorted back into her original location, she would have basically instantly died. But we're still really ahead here. Once again, she's playing really aggressively here. She has no distort available, and she's pathing into my range again. So that is a clone. I'm going to get faked out. It's a scarecrow. But no distort available right now. She's walking way too far up. Once again, access to a lot of additional sustain with C-Pot and Biscuit delivery. So if she tries to play aggressively here, this is a really wonky combo because at this point she doesn't have flash, so she has to commit here. Because if she runs a distort out, then I'm just going to run her down and then flash with W, and it's a guaranteed combo that way as well. So Xin Zhao hovering behind me results in a second kill here, and we're forcing the TP from their top laner, which means he's going to get this wave. And this is really massive because I get not only boots, but I get Lost Chapter. So Lost Chapter makes my lane sustain almost infinite. There's no way to get pushed out of lane. And I can apply as much pressure as I want. I still have access to flash, which is really good for playmaking potential. And wave is going to be pushing back into me, which means we have the opportunity to either gank her again or just create a bunch of pressure. Now, unfortunately, she purchases the Null Mantle, which means our damage gets gutted by a lot because our base damages are pretty inconveniently low, and a lot of our damage comes from that magic pin formula. But you'll see the waves pushing towards me here, so as long as I play this slow enough, I'm eventually going to be able to just zone her off the wave. But right now, we do see that their jungle is currently bot side, so you're going to see me playing super aggressively here. I kind of expected her to outplay the fear there, so I queued on her original location, and she just face tanked the fear, so that was really uncomfortable for me. And this is a mistake as well. There's really no reason to be pushing into her when I have control lane, but Distort is not available, so she's going to get chunked out here. And she's just taking so much damage for free because she's not playing around the game properly. And this is super cringe, but because she has clone available, I'm not able to kill her because I don't have enough vision to place my EQ. And it's pretty upsetting because she is playing so extremely poorly, but I don't have the ability to punish that specific skill set. And at this point, we know they're below us on dragons, so I'm going to go and cut them down here. And we're going to actually find the graves on the bot side here. But I don't really mind zoning them off because I assume that my teammates are finding something. They do get the gen. Going to go and fear them away. At this point, we're just going to go and distance cap them. Pretty clever usage of E to get fear back up so that we're able to find them. And then max range EQ here finds a third kill for us. 42 CS isn't the best. Like, Vex does have a little bit of difficulty with farming because of her low base damage. But starting the game off this strong is really, really good because we are a skirmishing champion. Once we have ultimate available again, we just look for any 2v2. Unfortunately, we do lose this game because our top lane goes 0-8 and Xin Zhao goes 1-11. But make sure to subscribe or comment your favorite thing about the video.